Welcome to Bridging the Gap to Connections, the talk show, where we begin by sharing your stories and spotlighting your shine. Welcome back to Bridging the Gap to Connections. Hi, everybody. I'm Darla Williams, and today I have the honor and privilege to bring to you Tom LeNoble. Let me tell you a little bit about who Tom is. Tom is an international speaker, resilience coach, and executive leader who empowers individuals and organizations to thrive through change. His career spans Fortune 500 companies, high-growth startups, and mission-driven ventures, blending strategic insight with heart-centered leadership in every boardroom, stage, and coaching session. Tom has held executive roles at Facebook, Meta, Walmart.com, Palm HP, and MCI Verizon, and was instrumental in startup, including support space Best Buy, Print.com, Acquired, and Speed Date Match Group. As founder of Teranga Enterprises, he supports leaders and teams in driving innovation, transformation, and measurable impact. He's a creator of the RiskAbility Factor, a practical and powerful framework that guides bold, purpose-driven leadership through uncertainty. Known for clarity, authenticity, and deep listening, Tom is a trusted voice on resilience, reinvention, and next-level leadership. Today, he serves as CEO of Academy for Coaching Excellence, mentoring the next generation of certified professional coaches. He also coaches global social entrepreneurs through the Miller Center for Global Social Impact at Santa Clara University. Tom's impact reaches beyond business. Through philanthropy, he supports youth arts programs, women's leadership, education, and underserved communities. His own path through life-threatening illnesses and profound personal loss inspires the way he shows up with presence, grace, and grit. He lives in the mantra, "I'm still here." Every word he speaks invites others to rise, rebuild, and lead, starting from exactly where they are. Questions will be asked coming up here in a few minutes so that we can really dive into who Tom LeNoble really is and the passion behind what he does. Welcome, Tom, to the show.
Hi, Dawn. It's great to be with you today.
So tell us a little bit about you on a personal side. We know who you are as a business.
Yes, on a personal side, I live in San Francisco and I live on Maui, which is where I'm at today. It's lovely to have those two different energies, which I really enjoy. One I describe as being like this, the other one's sort of like this. You know, it's a great different pace to life. And so I love doing that. And as you said there, I'm the survivor of two life-threatening illnesses. One I was told was terminal, and I've lived with metastatic cancer the last 13 years, and as I like to say, I'm still here. And I have a book coming out soon, which is exciting. I'm a first-time author in just a few weeks now. The name of my book is My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels.
I love that. I love that title. Repeat that title for others to hear.
My Life in Business Suits, Hospital Gowns, and High Heels.
Oh, we're definitely diving into this. We are definitely diving into this this new project. So what fueled you? Obviously, some illness with the hospital gowns, it sounds like this is how you began into the journey of this book project. So tell us how this began.
Well, this book is a memoir, and what I did is I decided that I needed to share this experience because our lives are often structured in different pieces, and what we look at them as disparate incidents that happen. And I believe that who we are today is the sum of all those experiences. Even if some of them feel that we should have shame, or they feel outrageous, or we sometimes feel they should be secrets and hidden from others, that there's actually power in sharing these stories with others and what they can learn from them because we learn life's wisdom. So, the business suits part, Darla, you just told the story. I was a very successful executive at some very wonderful companies. I fell in love, got married, traveled the world, and decided that I just had more to share and more to give, which is why I came back in full force with all the things you said that I'm doing today. And hospital gowns are about these experiences where, things happen where that hospital gown, that flimsy piece of fabric that rarely ties in the back, and, a good blow of wind, and we're all exposed, and all the experience of that and going through illness, not just illness. I've been given 6 months to live 3 times, and how you manage through that and what those lessons were. And then have to tell you the high heels, you're going to have to read the book.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see how high heels come into this picture. So I love the fact that in the beginning of reading your bio, somehow you ended up, and we had a little bit of a conversation before so that I could get a flow of energy working with you. You had some opportunity in the beginning of your career to work with, or somewhere in your career, to work with Meta and Facebook. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first thing people want to know when they hear this story is, did you get the stock? So before I tell you the story, I'll tell your viewers and you that if I were to do the calculation today and I had kept all that stock and not sold one share, I would be worth about $250 million. But I did sell it, and I don't regret it for a moment. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes. But I was sitting at my desk at Palm, running global service operations, traveling the world. I had my corporate staff, and the phone rang one day, and it was a recruiter. And many of us in business get calls from recruiters, and they said they were with Facebook. Facebook was still in colleges. I had no idea what it was. And I thanked them and said goodbye. And a buddy called me and said, I referred you to Facebook. You didn't talk to them. And what's that about? And I told him, well, you could have told me. And what's Facebook? Long story short, I interviewed with Mark Zuckerberg when he was 19 years old, which is a story that you really should hear about. And so I went there in a suit, up stairs in a little office that was over a sandwich shop in Palo Alto, and got to the top of the stairs to graffiti art of, I think it was women's breasts all over the place or something. And walked and turned a corner in my suit to see about 15 people, all young enough to be my child, and interviewed with Mark. Long story short of that is, I decided to go to Facebook because I was really intrigued with the product. I was really intrigued with the generation's willingness to share information with each other. So I went there and I started their user operations, customer operations, some things with fraud, the Suicide Prevention Center, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a number of things while I was there. But everybody there was fresh out of college, deferring business school, deferring law school, because Facebook was in colleges and this was their dream job. So everybody there literally was young enough to be my child. And boy, was that an experience, because I think they called me the adult in the room often, because really, if you can remember being in your early 20s in that period of your life, you're still finding your way at everything. You think you can own the world, but what a difference that was. But what a meaningful experience to be able to go there and spend time at the high growth time of that, when it was just so much fun and so much hard work. I like to say whatever your to-do list was today, if you didn't get it done, forget about it because you're going to have a whole new to-do list tomorrow.
Right? How exciting is that to be in the early developments of something that all of us use today on a regular? How exciting is it that you were in that space to being the behind the scenes of making things come together? That is such a, it's like I said, everyone, listening in, to be able to interview Tom is really truly an honor because a lot of times we don't get the opportunity to talk to those who are behind the scenes that make things come together. So tell me a little bit more about you in regards to the Fortune 500s and working with leaders all around the world.
I went to work at Walmart.com, and that was a great experience. It was very much in the early days. And while there were some tendrils between Walmart.com and Walmart, there weren't many. And I quickly became one of the tendrils, spent a lot of time in Bentonville, Arkansas, their headquarters. And, I was running customer service for Walmart.com, that in the process of how it all unfolded, the customer service center that I had and the customer service experience I had became very valuable to Walmart and what they were doing. So I quickly got involved and ended up, as I said, spending a lot of time there. It's fascinating to work for a company that is that big. I think at that time it was the largest company in the world. And you get exposed to things that are mind-boggling. I'll give you a couple examples. One day I was waiting to speak to the president of financial services at a meeting, and I was in the break room. And I'm in your typical break room. There's some vending machines, a couple of refrigerators, sink, tables, chairs. And this person came in. And so I introduced myself, and her name is Michelle. And I said, Michelle, what do you do? And she says, I monitor the refrigerators. And so I looked around the room. There's 2 refrigerators. And in my mind, I'm thinking, she monitors the refrigerators. And she goes, I know what you're thinking. And she says, Tom, from my desk, I monitor every refrigerator and freezer in every Walmart store that exists. I know when there's something wrong with a freezer or refrigerator before they do in the store. Mind blown, right? Wow. And then one day I was sitting in a meeting, and there were people come at these big Friday meetings people have heard about, and they present the numbers for each of their stores. And they were talking about the overall sales of strawberries. Now, in my mind, I go buy a little carton, maybe a flat of strawberries when they're in season. Well, when you hear the number that they sold across Walmart, it's this experience of, oh my God, where did all those strawberries come from? So being exposed to some of the magnitude and size of what they did at Walmart is an amazing experience. And to even have some influence over something that they're working on was just a really terrific experience to be able to be part of that.
How interesting. To be able to know that, well, one, for some of us out here, realizing that there is somebody that actually oversees such a large degree of coolers and refrigeration systems around, at this point, around internationally. Walmart has now become international. So as an international company, you've got refrigerators everywhere. You've got these cooler systems and everything else. To meet someone who's actually got that on their desk, I mean, can you imagine how many screens that takes?
Yes, and it's everywhere there. It's not just refrigerators. It's how it operates. When you've got something that big on scale, you have people that are doing things across everywhere because the efficiency you gain to be able to do things are huge. One of my favorite things was I was opening a new customer service center, and kind of a complicated thing where the employees were going to be part of Walmart, but it was Walmart.com center. So there was a lot of working across the aisle with people. And, the things that happen with that are really interesting. Well, I had to get contracts signed by Walmart. Well, they have a process. I don't know if they still do, but back then there was a process that they get a contract through. 8 executives had to sign it. And those 8 executives were never in a room together. And if you went around from one to the next one and get it signed, if one said no when you had to change something, you had to start all over. So you can imagine how long it took to get a contract through. Well, it was slowing me down. I don't like things that slow me down. So I met Lee Scott, the president at the time, in the hallway, and he asked me how things were going. And I said, things are going greatly, but this contract process is driving me crazy. And he started chuckling. And I said, Lee, it's not funny. I'm having a real hard time with it. He said, Tom, don't you see that we have so many people asking for contracts that we know if you can get that through those 8 people and get those approvals, you likely need to do what you're trying to get that contract for. Mind blown again, right? That was the
Yes.
process in place to manage the unbelievable numbers, unfathomable numbers of people trying to get contracts through. Was amazing. I have a fun story for you. I was in the famous Walmart, vendor aisle. People come and try and sell their stuff. It's like you've read about. People come in the front door. It's right in the front of the big main Walmart building at the time, anyway. And there's these little conference rooms you go in, just take in and show your wares to try and sell to Walmart. And you see people either elated, cheering like they were on Shark Tank and just won, or people that were devastated because, somebody would come and have, say, example, pickle jars, those huge jars of pickles. And Walmart would say, okay, we need them. And then they would say how many they needed. And the vendor knew there was no way they could make that many. And as a result, they weren't going to get it after all that hard work to get there. Devastated. But one day I rented a car while I was there, and I was taking the car back to the airport and making sure everything was out of the car. And in the trunk, when I opened it, I hadn't used the trunk, but I opened the trunk and there were 5 chickens in the trunk.
Oh,
And I
wow.
thought, chickens doing here? And so I stood there looking at these chickens and studying them, thinking, how long have these chickens been here? And so there were chickens that were ready-made to put in the oven, some product that somebody was selling. And what I realized is they had come there to show this chicken product, and they returned the car to the airport. They forgot that they'd left the chickens in the back of the truck. So I had to throw the chickens in the garbage. But it was another example of how big this operations is and what people bring to try and get in the Walmart. Because if you can get a Walmart, obviously what you're selling, you made it, right? But you have to have
Right.
enough. Back to the strawberry example, if you can't make enough of them to support the volume they need, then you can't play at the game. So
See, that is so interesting. I love the fact that you have the chicken story. I mean, who wouldn't want to hear the chicken story? You have, such incredible moments of interaction with different people around the world. You have the opportunity to see people at their most, where they're trying to find the way into the spaces that they really want to achieve, and being that person who helps them to achieve that. I mean, so here you are. I want to take you into another space altogether. We know now the corporate side of you, but let's look deeper into who you are as an individual, the passion behind some of the work that you do to help people around the world, in regards to the philanthropy that you do. Can you tell us a little bit more about you on that level?
this is a great question, Darla, because it lets me read your viewers are wondering, okay, what happened to that stock? Well, I did okay. I have a wonderful life. I'm very comfortable. What that afforded me to do, well, I don't have the 250 million. I did okay, but actually why I do everything I do is I'm a philanthropist. And I support underserved communities, as you said, youth in the arts, first gen students that are really brilliant that would never have the opportunity to go to college, a lot of relevant women issues, hunger, many things. My CPA is a dear friend, and I have a separate from my work, a little nonprofit, and we support my 2 favorite projects for this foundation is, one is we support women that are being discharged from San Francisco General Hospital for domestic violence into getting in touch with their bodies by either doing acupuncture or Pilates. But one of my favorite is we have a woman who finds little at-risk boys on the streets of Oakland and teaches them how to play the saxophone to give them an identity. And we just make it possible for her to teach little at-risk boys how to play the saxophone. Love, love, love it. I grew up some very, very humble beginnings. In fact, when you read my book, we have this thing we used to literally call it the shack where I grew up. We didn't have hot water. We didn't have a refrigerator. And I came from some humble beginnings and I did well. And I worked hard at it. And But I also believe that those of us who do well have a responsibility to give back. In fact, one of my new things, I'm just developing a keynote on it because I give keynote speeches, which is called the philanthropic mindset. Because people hear the word philanthropy and they will even say, and they definitely think it, I wish I had the money to do that, or if I only had the money to do that. Well, if you have a philanthropic mindset, it's not just about money. Your philanthropy can be your smile. Your philanthropy is not always about going to a gala or having your name on a building. It's about what you can do for others. It isn't always related to money, but you have a philanthropic mindset. I like to remind some of the people that I work with that live on donations, nonprofits, to never forget that the person that gives you $1,000 check or the person that hands you 4 quarters are the same energy. That gift came from their wealth of what they have. And while you may believe you can do more with the $1,000 check, the intent and the gift, the philanthropic mindset the person had when they were giving, has just as much energy, just as much power. So I spend a lot of my time doing what I do to continue my philanthropy work. And it's one of the things that just really makes me really happy, and I really enjoy it. And it is true. Some people don't realize, and they think it's just people saying it, but in giving, not only do we receive, but it comes back to you in so many ways. And for your viewers, some of them believe in this, some of them will think it may be woo-woo, but I think the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, believes in this cycle of giving and receiving and doesn't like it when we disrupt it. You know, there's people who are givers and don't take enough. There are people who are takers and don't give enough. So finding that balance and realizing we all can do something to help another person. Sometimes that's just a hello or a smile.
I love what you just unpacked there. You know, I really want to emphasize on something he just said to the audience. You know, you got to remember who you are. And if you are the giver, you got to remember when to set the boundary for giving. But if you are the taker, you got to respect the boundary. And, you know, it goes both ways. It's like the teacher and the student. And these two pieces are so vital for each and every one of us. Oh, gosh, thank you for diving into that space.
Yeah. Wise words that Darla just shared with you. You know, I look at it this way sometimes. Those of us that are big givers that have trouble taking, you'll hear people speak to it. Big givers have trouble taking. And I think sometimes we don't open ourselves to realizing that we get something back because we don't want to be perceived like the people who took from us. Know that it's just part of the cycle. Here in Hawaii, we have something called mana. And I went to a symposium once, and I always tried to reconcile with this mana idea of giving and taking. And somebody said it really simple when they were presenting it. It's sort of like your checkbook. If you keep taking too much and don't put anything in it, well, we know where that goes. If you keep putting too much in it and don't use some of it, your lights might not be on. So it's this old idea of there is some balance between this giving and taking in many parts of our life. If we take too much from the earth, look what happens. If we cultivate the earth, look what it gives us.
Wow. You know, with the fact that you were saying, you know, the opportunity that, you know, even as simple as a smile, people don't realize that when you're walking through, you know, the grocery store, I think that was probably one of the places I began, Tom, is realizing the importance of standing shoulders up, head back, and, you know, up, and paying attention to the people around me. There are so many people that are hurting every day. And a simple smile can literally change somebody's life in an instant because they realize that they're seen, heard, and understood. Those three pieces in life are so vital, and that's what you have had the privilege. What is your favorite story in regards to finding those moments in life when you have met someone along the way that you got to actually pour into their life?
Thank you for asking me this question, Darla. I'll tell you my favorite story is about Noreen. I have a favorite restaurant. It's now not there anymore, but a favorite restaurant in San Francisco that I used to go to every Sunday after I went to church because it was down the street. And I would go to this restaurant. It was called Cafe for All Seasons. It was so good. And they would have a Sunday brunch that was really great. And so as I would go there, I would sit and I always noticed this older woman, this elderly woman, sitting by herself. And she always sat by the kitchen because you could see them prepare the food. And I'd watch her across the room. And so I started buying her lunch, but I told them not to tell her it was for me. So after a while of doing this, because she was there every Sunday, I was there Sunday. She got up from her table and walked over to mine and looked at me and said, she was a little tiny Italian woman, Spitfire. And she looked at me and said, I know you're buying me lunch. I just thought I would tell you. And of course, I looked at shock. And then she said to me, if you're going to buy me lunch, you could at least eat it with me. So it started a wonderful relationship between Noreen and I, who was in her late 80s. And I was friends with Noreen until she was 99 and finally made her transition in life. And we not only had lunch, but she used to get around. She had a wonderful history about what she had done in her life and was in great shape for her age. And then around 95, I think, she was walking down the sidewalk and some skateboards came by and scared her and she fell. And that changed the trajectory of her life and put her on a path where she couldn't get well. Her body just wouldn't heal from some of the injuries. But we had this wonderful relationship, and there's so much wisdom you can learn from people like that. Because when my father was having problems and needed some help, and I said to her one day, my dad really needs to use a walker, but he refuses. And she looked at me and she said, honey, it's really simple. Buy the walker, leave it in the house. Don't say anything about it, just leave it. And she goes, I guarantee when you come back the next time to see your father, he'll be using it. And I thought, this is brilliant. So I did it. And sure enough, I came back the next time and my father's using the walker. Why? Because he was able to do it on his own time and his own decision. Nobody was forcing it upon him, because for any of us, giving up on some of those things, we perceive it as giving up on something that we're going to use a walker, as opposed to thinking this might help me go longer, right? Be able to be active more longer. But if we can do it at our own time and we do it ourselves, there's so much more to it. So I love that you asked me that question so I can think about Noreen and share the story of Noreen, who I think of very, very often.
You know, what I've found in life is the stories that make the sum of who we are from the little experiences along the way. And being with someone in your stature of doing life the way that you have, being the ability to step in to assist other people the way that you do, and being that this is part of your soul, your call into this world today. Here you are actually able to live that life that for the fullest. And you're the greatest example. It's for others who are listening in to know that no matter what that adversity is, if you remember what he said just a few minutes ago, he went from being in a shack and having that space where he didn't have even running water. We're only as limited as we believe, right? And if we can choose to begin changing the way that we see ourselves, Tom is a great example. And really, if you're looking at rebuilding yourself, I want to dive into the fact that he's a resilience coach. And I want to talk about that for a minute so that people can have an opportunity to hear, what does a resilience coach even begin to do?
Yeah, thank you, Darla. I've learned a lot about resilience in life. As you can imagine, I shared a little bit about the things I've done as a business that require you to have resilience to overcome things and bounce back. And that's not really what it means. It doesn't mean to get up after you fall. It means to get up and grow. It means to learn from it and grow more. In my book, the first thing you'll see when you open the page is a quote by Maya Angelou: every storm runs out of rain. To remember that no matter what the storm is in your life, the sun is shining behind it. It will come out again. That every storm runs out of rain. So whatever you're facing in life, is going to be something that you can learn from. And often, if you think about it, it may be years later, but we look back about what happened that was really maybe difficult in our lives. And we realize it was something that I like to call terrible gifts. We would have never chose it. It was terrible, but we found there a gift from it, terrible gifts. So resilience to me is really about how we have the things that happen in our lives. And it's not that we don't experience them or discount them, is that we see that they're just part of life. They're part of life and they're opportunities to grow and part of things that can inspire us to do more and to do anything we really want to do. It's really what it's about. I realize it's really hard and not everybody thinks that that's possible, but I promise you, I believe in baby steps. Sometimes we set goals that are these huge things, people do it all the time, and we just set ourselves up, right? Baby steps. Start doing things in little baby steps, because when you add up a bunch of baby steps, you took a big leap.
Well, I know that we are running out of, at the end of the hour coming up, and you have another appointment to run off to because you are a busy man. So I don't want to take up all of your time, but I could sit under you all day long and learn as much as possible. As those out there listening in, I hope that as you hear his stories and see what he's doing, that you can see the heart behind the people who are actually out there doing the things that they're doing. Life has opportunities everywhere we turn. Some are worth taking and some are not. It's really up to us to begin making time to tune into ourselves, as Tom has taken the time to help me to learn as well. Tom, is there any last words you'd like to give to anyone listening in?
Well, Darla, maybe we'll do a part 2 one day. And just know you can find me at tomlenoble.com. I'd love to hear from you, and let's all support Darla in this mission she's got going. We can see how much it comes from her heart. And Darla, it has been a delight being with you today and starting to get to know you better. And I look forward to more.
I do as well. Thank you all for joining us at Bridging the Gap to Connections. Until next time, bye for now.